Anybody have a sleeping problem? No, no sleeping problem. Some people have sleeping problem. If you get a good sleep, and a really good rest, huh? Yeah. You know, when people get sick, and then you go to hospital, and then you sleep day and night in hospital. I think that's a huge part of recovery process. One of the doctor was telling me that it's the people many times is just they stress out, overwork, they didn't rest properly, then you get sick, then just some medication and in hospital bed, sleep, 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 then you get healed. Yeah, there's all kinds of sleeping pills. You can get injection. Michael Jackson died, you remember? One of those, yeah, sleeping. He was doing it so he'd get good sleep, good rest. Overdid it, his doctor. You remember his doctor was convicted of crime and sent to jail, I think. Yeah. And then like idea that if life is stressful, then go to sleep. Good deep sleep and never wake up. Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate to think that way, huh? You know, my enlightened guru once told me a story. He said he and his brother, his younger brother, two of them together, wandering around talking when they were young boys. And then, they were both very bright, and talk about existence and why we're alive and, those kind of questions. And then, and then he said he and his younger brother talk, you know, um, what if when we die, then that's the end of it. Then you disappear. That's it. You no longer exist. How would that be? And my guru, I think my guru's role was kind of like proposing that intellectual proposal to his younger brother. What if you don't exist after you die? That's it. That's the end of your existence. And you know what my guru said? His brother, younger brother, I think had intelligent young man. Says, "Oh no, I wouldn't want to disappear." He says, "Even I'm born in an animal realm. I want to exist. You know, yeah, I wouldn't want me disappear completely." His younger brother said that. So, I thought about it. I remember I heard that when I was quite young, at the time. My guru said that his younger brother replied like that. So I thought about it. I've come to the same conclusion myself. You know, if you know you exist and you have a possibility to exist beautifully, like the Buddhas, or you want to exist, of course, right? Yeah. But Buddhists were accused in India by a Hindu philosophers, you know, dogma based on theism, very strong belief in Atma and eternalistic view that the Buddha taught nihilism when he emphasized teaching on emptiness. Yeah. um, there's a story actually even, you know, in um, Hindu teaching, um, you can almost say mythology, that the the Vishnu's avatar, you know Vishnu God, many of you know, right? Brahma God. Brahma, the creator, I think Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the destroyer. Something that's how it goes. Three gods, Actually, with all due respect, from Buddhist point of view, they're all worldly God. They're real, true though, but they are worldly God, very powerful beings. They're not Buddhas. This is how we Buddhists really believe. I think this is a fact. You know, People who are attached in Hindu doctrine not gonna like this, but I think this is a fact. I think so. Anyway, Vishnu incarnation stories. Rama was, I think, was the number 8, something like that. And the Rama was so great. Rama did so many wonderful things to mankind, and everybody was so virtuous, and so on and so on. And then they all went to heaven. Okay, that's the story. They all went to heaven. And heaven is filled with people, and then hell is almost becoming empty. Can you believe? Teaching like hell is almost becoming empty. And and the hell Lord of the hell, called Yama. Yama was not a little bit concerned. There's no sentient being in hell. It's continually diminishing. Hell realm is becoming empty, and so on and so on. And then Yama doesn't want hell to be empty either. Story like that. And then now, how does the story go? Yeah. Anyway, something. And later, then Buddha came. Can you believe Hindus say this kind of thing? Buddha came and he taught this nihilistic doctrine, nihilism, nothingness. You see? And then everybody made a huge mistake and went to hell. This kind of story, can you believe? They will tell this, Hindus will tell this kind of story. Buddha taught nihilism and hell was filled with human beings again because they all believe in a wrong view. And you become nothingness. See, like that. Our precious Buddha taught nihilism. Yeah. I think this is how I feel. In the great Buddhist heydays in India, Nalanda Institute, Takshashila, Bikram Institute, so many great Buddhist monasteries, you know, the true renaissance, true spiritual renaissance, in India happened. And then, but then India is predominantly Hindu society too, Rig Veda has been there thousands of years, right? So there's so many of them still hold on to that theory of, you know, eternalist theory. God is real and He created, and Brahma is real and Atma is real, and they're so strong, intellectually insist on that. And then the Nalanda Buddhist master, to counter that, they emphasize so much in emptiness doctrine, actually, Now, now overall view-wise, generally emphasize too much in emptiness doctrine looks like maybe not very good idea initially, because then very easy to be accused as a nihilist. You don't understand what Buddha was talking about. Underlying nature is emptiness. Yeah. So all great Nalanda masters, initially Nagarjuna taught this because Nagarjuna wants to clarify all the Buddha's emptiness teaching on transcendental wisdom, summarize them so that everybody could understand clearly. Because Buddha's teaching is so many volumes, and if you're truly not brilliant, you wouldn't understand reading all these sutras, volumes and volumes of sutras, you get lost, So Nagarjuna manifest, and present all these second turning wheel of Dharma teaching based on emptiness doctrine. It's like the synopsis of Buddha's teaching on emptiness, and then and then Chandrakirti and all these other great Nalanda masters, further expounded that particular theory. Yeah, yeah. Buddhist masters do hold several different philosophical views. One of the most famous is Prasangika view of emptiness. This view is asserted greatly by Nalanda master called Chandrakirti, emphasize on emptiness nature. Actually, emptiness nature of what? This is the point. Emptiness nature of, guess what? It's very important. Your own mind, our mind. That's the point. Okay? You see, emphasis on that. That first you have to get that correct. Then manifestation and so on. It can be understood correctly too. That underlying, yeah. Not understanding that, then you get confused or lost. Then you think this is all real, and you're holding, grasping. You see, I've been telling you, grasping is the root of all the evil in Buddhism. That's the ignorant, not understanding, not knowing, misknowing, confused, lost. This is the thing. See, so no point. It's this. You have to let it go. That's the point, right? Like that. Yeah. So, enlightened master like Chandrakirti, this great, great master, he, yeah, he demonstrated emptiness of nature of phenomena by milking a cow from a mural, painting cow, milk, just show everybody else how he can do that, just to demonstrate nothing is real, but it's still, phenomena still happens, It's so amazing, like Chandrakirti, Imagine master level at that level. How incredible! Yeah. But my favorite story of Chandrakirti is that the Chandrakirti with the Tara statue thing. Many of my students you already know, but some of you may not know. I will tell the story. The Chandrakirti, this great, great Nalanda master, 2nd century Nalanda master actually. Chandrakirti was like second, 3rd century. Incredible being. And the story was in Nalanda Institute in India. um, in that area, they had an annual festival where young boys and girls all dressed up. Something like a high school prom here in the United States, I guess, You have to dress up and, you have to have, some front of everybody. This is one of those occasions all young people all like to have. And then the story goes something like there was a mother and a daughter, and they were very poor mom and a poor daughter. And the daughter, who was around teenage years, I guess, and wanted to go to this party so badly, and some nice dress and ornaments, nice dress and jewelry ornaments and some like that. And then she wanted to be able to enjoy just like any other teenage in this big event, and then she doesn't have that, and she's so agonized over that, and then fought with mom. You cannot provide me even something like that, and she cried and fought, and the mom feels so bad she cannot provide anything like that to her daughter, and out of her compassion and desperation that she wants to be able to at least do something for her, she had a thought. She knew Chandrakirti was alive that time, Nalanda master, and she knew Chandrakirti was truly a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva, see? And Chandrakirti would have compassion. I go and beg this bodhisattva, if he could help me. So she and her daughters, demand, went to Chandrakirti and bow and say, you are a bodhisattva. My daughter is fighting me. I'm a poor mother, laid nothing, you know. Can you please help me? And Chandrakirti was a great Nalanda leader and everything, but he was a yogi. He didn't have any particular possessions or anything like that. He didn't. But I guess he probably everything went to Nalanda Institute, monastery, gave it away, whatever offerings he received. So he would sit like this, and then in his right hand side or left hand side of the wall with the painting of a Tara, Mother Tara mural painting. Chandrakirti looked at him and had so much compassion to this mother, out of his compassion. And he doesn't have anything himself to give. And then he's like, Mother Tara, they they are so much in a need like this. I don't have anything. Can you please help me? And this mirror Mother Tara, painting Mother Tara's, take out all her jewelry and everything, like this, give it to Chandrakirti, and then Chandrakirti gave it to the mother. And then the mother went and gave daughter, and daughter get to have all jewelry and everything, and then dressed up, and then it was enjoy. I guess had a good time, whatever. And that's the famous story that this mural painting in Nalanda Institute, Chandrakirti's room, has no ornaments, nothing. And this is a very famous story because Tibetan masters throughout the history, centuries after century, visited Nalanda, and this room was one of their pilgrim site. Oh, what's that? And this painting, Tara without a jewelry. Tara showed her true color. Tara said, like, this is who I am. I do this type of stuff. That's my favorite story of Chandrakirti. It's amazing, huh? Yeah. Huh? Is it still there? No, it's gone. Nalanda Institute was completely destroyed around 17th century. Burn, destroy. Buddhist texts were all destroyed. Everything was, Buddha Dhamma was completely finished. Completely finished in India. Many of Nalanda masters at that time, they went to exile, kind of refuge. They went to Tibet. Some of those great masters came to Tibet. Yeah. Like that. This is what happened. Yeah. Then just during when British was ruling India, just over maybe around almost 200 years now ago, some one of very famous Indian Buddhist master. What's his name? I forgot his name. He made an effort to revive Buddhism in India. And one of his main things was because by then, when the British were ruling India, all the British holy sites, like Bodh Gaya and all these other holy sites, were all occupied by Hindus. Indian Hindus, they occupied it. Somehow it's under their supervision or something. And this great master fought for Buddhist society. It's the right to right ownership of all those holy sites. And this is the thing, society called Mahabodhi society. And Bodh Gaya stupa and everything is still run by that. He was the one who kind of revived that. And I think he was Indian ethnically, I think. Then Sri Lanka connection. Theravada, some come back and forth like. Then after that, then in India itself, Buddhist revival happened from India's untouchable family, Dr. Ambedkar family. This is the other famous story. Dr. Ambedkar, his political move. But I have to, talking about Ambedkar, I have to say one story. This is, it's kind of like, for me, that's kind of sad a little bit, but this is the reality, and then we have to talk about it. Dr. Ambedkar was born untouchable. In India, this caste teaching that come from Rig Vedas, you know. Um, and he was born untouchable, but he was a very smart kid from childhood, tough and smart. And then he hated being treated like a trash when he was a little kid. Everybody, Indian society, uneducated, kind of poor. Then this is what happens, unfortunately. Uh, when I was a little kid, I went to Nepali school in Darjeeling. I know how you get treated, like that. So if you're untouchable, then imagine how you get treated, right? Um, yeah, like that. So Dr. Ambedkar hated that, and he didn't like, and he was very proud, very proud. And then his way to, how do you say, demand respect was through education. He thought, if I, you know, you know, outlearn everybody else, then I will get respect, so to speak. So he was very good, very, very smart. So he was very good at academically, did very well. And he went to high school, college, university, all the way to PhD and everything. But in Indian society, he was still, people knew he was educated, but then behind, they're still talking, he's untouchable. This is human being, sad human being. I heard same kind of story in Hollywood, even if you have a little Mexican blood in Hollywood, Latino, most, white Hollywood, he's Mexican. Can you believe like this goes on? This is a human being, sadly. Yeah. One of the story actually, one Hollywood guy told me is the famous Hollywood actor called Martin Sheen. You remember? Charlie Sheen's dad, Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen was apparently not completely white. He had some Latino blood, something, something. And you know what? There's some talk like this Dr. Ambedkar story behind. He's not pure white type. You see, white people have this pride and, this little arrogant, what to do, and they're doing even like this. Martin Sheen, looks completely white, but even he gets that. So imagine what Dr. Ambedkar will get. Right? So Dr. Ambedkar hated. He thinks I'm smarter, I'm more educated and everything. They still look down on me. It's that kind of thing, and he hated it. So then his solution to his pride and in earning respect was still through education. So he thought, well, if I go, he had an opportunity, go to overseas and then get a postdoc. Then I will be really respected in Indian society as finally, highly, highly educated man. So he went to United States in New York, Columbia University. Story was that he did a postdoc over there, and he went back to India. No, there's still whispers behind that he's untouchable, and he hated that. So then what happened is right around Mahatma Gandhi, he was having his, passive resistance movement against British rule in India. Dr. Ambedkar has his own agenda that he too wanted, untouchable people's rights. So then he started his political movement. Then, he's an educated guy, smart guy. He researched where is this coming from. And so then he's pinpoint. This is from Hindu doctrine. Then he rejects Hindu doctrine. I'm not accepting. I'm second to none type of thing. His ego, he wants to be number one. I'm second to none. type of attitude. Then you know what? This is where Buddhist story comes in. Then he come to realize, since he's a highly educated man, looked in Buddha, then he can see Buddha really was the impartial teacher. Impartial, you know, completely impartial teacher, Buddha. Then he decided to be Buddhist. He converted himself into Buddhism. By then, he had a huge political movement, millions of untouchable followers already, you know. So the story is that he mm, mm, takes a refuge ceremony under some Sri Lankan monk, famous Sri Lankan monk, in a public gathering, and he takes refuge vow, and then he, in turn, right after taking, gives refuge vow to millions of his followers. That's how it happens. It's a political thing, you know. you know. But that's not what I wanted to tell you. Here's the part that disappointing story. In my heart, this is too bad, kind of disappointing. And Dr. Ambedkar, then, you know, one of the first Buddha's teaching is Four Noble Truth, right? Noble Truth. The truth of suffering. Fact. Fact. You know, this is the issue. That is the issue. We all have that, you know. So we have to solve that problem, right? Truth of suffering. Yeah. First, you have to correctly come to that understanding. You cannot have illusions about that, you know. You really have to correctly understand that. Only then you will have a motivation to solve the problem, you know. Then you will have genuine what you can do to overcome this. Then, you know, Buddha's not going to leave you there. Everything is mess, terrible. That's it. Too bad for you. No, Buddha now teaches you how you can solve this issue. You see? Then, second noble truth is truth of origin of suffering. Now here I want to clarify one thing. You know, you listen to many of these teachings, truth of suffering and truth of origin of suffering. Most of the Theravadan doctrine, Theravadan monks and people who didn't know Mahayana, Vajrayana teaching will always say truth of the origin of suffering is desire. This is only partially correct, you know. And then the reason why I'm making this point is because, you know, this unnecessarily lead others to attack Buddha's teaching too, without understanding, you know. Because most people think, not most people, many people think desire has no problem. They didn't see desire as a problem, you know. And those kind of mindset, then they don't like it. Like, desire is the root of all the problem. No. I met one medical doctor a long time ago, like 30 years ago actually. One time we talk about it, about Buddhist teaching and pain and suffering and so on. You know, oh no, yeah, all the problems and so on. And then I was saying in Buddhist teaching, yeah, desire is a problem. You know, he was like, oh, you know, can you believe this medical doctor? He was somebody from Beverly Hills, a successful doctor, and he was he just flatly rejected this Buddhist teaching. He said, oh, I disagree with that. I think desire is good. Without desire, we wouldn't have all these wonderful things. You know, this was the first time I ever heard somebody saying it like that, putting it in that way. And I don't know how to even answer, you know. And I'm kind of shocked and taken back. And I'm like, oh, you know, this is how they see it, you know. What are you going to tell them, right? Anyway, you see, it's like this. And so my point is, desire is part of the problem. Desire means attachment here, you know, attachment in particular. Maybe desire is a slightly positive word, you know. You can desire Buddhahood too, you know. Maybe it would be like desiring Buddhahood is bad. No, desiring Buddhahood is good. Desire to help sentient being is a bodhisattva principle, you know. Attachment, that's the part that you understand, you know. This is from the point of view of 3 poison and 5 poison, 3 poison, see? That's the one. But now, to correctly understand, root of all the suffering is Are we over time? Root of all the suffering is not just attachment, not desire, but attachment, grasping and attachment, aversion, stupidity, 3 poison, jealousy and pride, 5 poison, complete, 5 poison is complete, right? And then those 5 poison, action-based 5 poison, karma, that's the root of all the, and then root of all of that is fundamental ignorance. Just didn't know. You see, all this wrong activity out of delusion, not knowing. Yeah. Definition of ignorant is not knowing. You see, that really is sad. So from there, but then there's a path, right? Path. Then the truth of the path, the truth of cessation. Then, when you correctly understand, then you can see, oh, all these poisons, karmas can be removed. Ignorance can be removed. Then you can see. This is what the third truth, cessation of suffering. Suffering can come to an end. That's correct understanding. And then how suffering can come to end is based on path. Path. 5 path or 8-fold path and so on, right? So now I want to make a point of Dr. Ambedkar here. Dr. Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar, he's no problem with truth of suffering and truth of cessation, truth of path. But he wants to change the truth of origin of suffering, where it says karma is part of it. Karma, that your own karma is part of the truth of suffering. And he doesn't like that. He wants to be able to blame Hindu society. And doesn't want. He wants to change the Buddha's teaching. Blame is okay, but he wanted to change that. Buddha's teaching. That's when I was so sad. It's really make me sad. These people are so brilliant, so smart, and then even, they have to they wanted to try and alter even a Buddha's teaching based on your own ego and clinging and your own grasping. Like this. This is, yeah. Human beings do that all the time. Even the ultimate truth needs to come according to your desire. This is how people, a lot of the time people are, You see? Yeah. And that's why a lot of the teaching has been sugar-coated. This is to make sweet. That's the English word. Sugar-coat means make it nice and sweet sounding.
It's so easy to get confused and twist things around. How do we cultivate right understanding just to get out of the mess?
I think faith, say in your case, faith is very important. Even if you don't understand, you just have to have faith. If the Buddha's teaching really says that, okay, I don't understand, but there has to be deeper reason, and you can ask teachers who knows, like you can ask me, I don't understand this particular thing, what does this mean? I think that's the best way for you. But in general, in Buddhist teaching, you understand, you have to study a lot. That's why there's Buddhist epistemology exists. Logics and rational reasoning, Dharmakirti is logic. Logic. Actually, basic Dharmakirti is, all this fine logic is to present truth so that you understand truth correctly. Actual truth. Yeah. All kinds of rational. all kinds of reasoning, many different reasons. There's many, and Dharmakirti is so brilliant. He figure out everything, how things are, and then he's able to tell you exactly how things really work. Kind of like this would be like in today's world, the scientific way of pointing out at the truth, so to speak. Dharmakirti has all those logics. Yeah. This is where like Buddhist debates and so on comes in. You debate what's the actual truth, Yeah. Ultimate purpose of debating is to come to what this the actual reality is. That's the real point, Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I was just going to ask about, we, we have this issue in Buddhism where scholarly kind of thing can overtake true understanding, like conceptualization can overtake true understanding, direct experience. How do you balance that correctly so that you make sure that you're studious, you can study, but not become overly saturated?
Yeah. Sincerity is the key. Understanding this, that is very complicated, very difficult, not easy. You study so much, you can still be disillusioned. People can get lost. So, actually, the key really is to follow an enlightened guru. You really have to find authentic guru. Then you will not get lost no matter what happens. You have some authentic being you can rely on. Otherwise, you will get lost no matter what it is. It's difficult, not easy. Yeah. So that's the kind of a guideline. And then you have to be sincere. You know, you know. If you're sincere, no matter what's going on, you will always be okay. Even you meet, how do you say, unethical friends and teachers, whatever. If you're sincere, you yourself, pure and sincere, you will not be affected. Like this, actually. Yeah. Yeah. In Buddhist teaching, to Christina's point, to your point, processes first, listening, study, listen, what the teaching is. Then all teaching, contemplation, you know. Mm, contemplation, proper, correct contemplation dispels the uncertainty and doubts, And then finally, meditation illuminates the truth. Everything is gone. You actually understood, real understanding. Real understanding only takes place when you meditate, practice. You put it into practice. Until then, it's still conceptual, not the real thing. So that's the other real issue, actually. Yeah. Okay, we have to start now.